What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Country Cast. Our video for you today is our Volume 2 edition to our most shocking moments in country music series. And since the beginning, country music has had some of the most talented and fascinating artists in the business. Because of these artists and their stories, many things have happened, such as the change in sound in country music, and the opening of doors for the next eras, chapters, and future artists in the industry. Unfortunately, there were also tragic moments that really rocked the country music community. But Volume 2 looks at, of course, Willie, Waylon and the Boys, Dolly Parton, and more. Since I mentioned change in sound first, let's go ahead and start there with the man who really went into a whole new direction and has become an icon, Hank Williams Jr., Old Bo Cephas. During Hank Jr.'s career, there was one incident that sparked a whole new Hank, a new beginning, if you will, for the country music star. On August 8th, 1975, Hank Jr. unfortunately almost lost his life and suffered major injuries from a very horrific fall. On this day, Bo Cephas and his friend decided to go climb a mountain in southwestern Montana along the Idaho border known as Ajax Peak. During their hike, the snow underneath Jr. collapsed, causing him to fall nearly 500 feet. Associated Press ran an article a few days later on the front page of the Tennessean, citing that he had suffered severe head injuries as he struck jutting rocks. After the fall, Jr. had to be medevaced from the scene and was flown to Missoula Community Hospital, where he received treatment. Medical professionals operated on Hank for nearly over 7 hours, attending to his severe head injury and facial wounds. Nowadays, obviously, you see Hank donning the sunglasses and the hat. That is how we have seen Hank since his return. After the grueling surgery, Hank Williams awoke in his hospital room, and sitting bedside was his godmother, June Carter Cash, and the man in black himself, Johnny. Hank spoke to Rolling Stone about this moment and said that when I fell, there were only two people I saw when I woke up in the hospital bed, and that was Johnny and June. June put a cross on me and told me it was all going to be okay. I never knew if I would sing again or not, talk again or not, let alone think about what I was going to look like. It was a scary time. Junior's mother also arrived to be with her son, and she told the Tennessean in an interview at the time that it's just a miracle the boy is living, but he's young and he's tough. It was just God's will for him to live. And God's will it was, because later that year in December 1975, he released the album that would change his life entirely and country music forever, Hank Williams Jr. and Friends. This fall was critical in Hank's career and in life. Prior to the incident, he had already spent the first half of 1975 recording the album alongside Toy Caldwell, one of the founding members of the Marshall Tucker Band. This fall, however, set Hank Jr. back from even really promoting this album as well. But as we all know now, that didn't matter, and it became the record that catapulted Hank and the album that finally gave him the release and sound that he needed from his fathers. For several years, Hank Jr. performed, but he spent that time playing his father's songs and imitating his every move on and off the stage and in recordings. Hank Jr. wanted his own tune, his own image, and this album gave that to him. In a time where the Charlie Daniels Band was really making waves of their own, Hank Jr. ran right alongside of them, showing off his Southern rock blues and honky-tonk outlaw style, where they were all mixed into one, which is what Hank really wanted. And since then, Hank Jr. has been an icon to all of us in country music. And what a treat it has been. Moving on to one of the most beautiful souls in country music, a woman that has meant so much to everyone in and out of the business, Miss Dolly Parton. Some of you may remember that Dolly Parton and Porter Wagoner were inseparable early on in her career. Hell, Porter, say what you want about him, he really did help Dolly jumpstart her career and put her on the map. But here's the story, and most folks couldn't believe it. Dolly Parton found her start by performing on Porter Wagoner's weekly TV program known as The Porter Wagoner Show. She also worked as a part of his traveling show as well. While Dolly and Porter were working alongside one another, they also recorded a string of albums together like Just the Two of Us and Together Always. Sounds like things are going fine, right? Well, not so much. Dolly ended up wanting to separate from Porter and his shows because she was ready to go out on her own and do what she wanted to do for her own music career. Dolly told CMT in an interview, "I was trying to get away on my own because I had promised to stay with Porter's show for 5 years. I had been there for 7, and we fought a lot. We were very much alike. We were both stubborn. We both believed that we knew what was best for us. Well, he believed he knew what was best for me too, and I believed that I knew more what was best for me at that time. So needless to say, there was a lot of grief and heartache there, and he just wasn't listening to my reasoning for my going." Now this is where Dolly's hit song, "I Will Always Love You," come into play. Yeah, the one that was made popular by Whitney Houston. Dolly was going out on her own. When Dolly says it, she means it. But with grace, Dolly wrote Porter this song and sang it to him. She did this as her way of telling him goodbye. In that same interview mentioned before from CMT, Dolly said, "It's saying, just because I'm going, don't mean I won't love you. I appreciate you. I hope you do great. And I appreciate everything you've done, but I'm out of here." That's basically what I was saying. And I took it in the next morning. I said, "Sit down, Porter. I've written this song and I want you to hear it." So I did. I sang it. And he was crying. He said, "That's the prettiest song I ever heard. And you can go, providing I get to produce that record." And he did. And the rest is history. The rest, well, it was history. But even though Porter and Dolly made yet another agreement and things seemed fine when they broke from one another, Porter still went after Dolly with a civil suit. Porter sued Dolly for $3 million. However, Parton settled at $1 million and paid out installments to Porter for the next several years. Now, in 1980, their relationship seemed to be somewhat reconciled after they recorded their reunion album, Porter and Dolly. It was a love-hate relationship between the two, and Wagner pretty much knew that Dolly leaving his show would not be good for it, but man, was Dolly right. And Parton proved that she was fit to be a solo act and in charge of her music and not tied down to a show that held back the wonderful creativity that we fans have enjoyed for years. That breakup may have been tough, but it was damn sure good for country music. So while we're on the topic of speaking about doing things their own way, how about we hop on over to the hoss, Waylon Jennings. We got a couple of stories from Waylon. First up is his 1975 CMA Award Show speech. 1975 seemed to be the year where a lot of shit went down in country, but anyways. In 1975, Waylon Jennings was a nominee for Male Vocalist of the Year. Rightfully so. Waylon was up against John Denver, Freddie Fender, Conway Twitty, and Ronnie Millsap. And yeah, you guessed it, Waylon Jennings beat out his competition and won Male Vocalist of the Year. But it was a win that was bittersweet to Waylon, because prior to the awards ceremony, his win was spoiled by someone telling him that he had won the award, but his wife Jessie Coulter had won nothing. It seemed tough for Nashville and the Machine to really accept Waylon, as he was one to not play into their antics at the time, and needless to say, because of that, he was told to be nice when he gave his acceptance speech. Waylon walked right up to the podium, accepted his award, and said, "They told me to be nice. I don't know what they meant by that. Thank you." And then he just walked off like a boss. We have that speech for you right here.
Thank you. They told me to be nice. I don't know what they meant by that. Thank you.
Man, what a legend. I can only imagine what the producers thought of him on that particular night. But like I said, that's only one of the stories we have. We have a second one, and it's just as legendary. What if I told you Waylon Jennings took a piss and he made $25,000 off of it? Yeah, pretty crazy. Waylon wrote about the moment in his book Waylon, the autobiography, and like I said, it's a pretty wild story. Waylon and his lawyer met with Chet Atkins and Jerry Bradley, who were executives for RCA Records, and the meeting was over royalties surrounding Waylon's music. Well, Waylon and his attorney, Neil Reshen, had requested a $25,000 advance for those royalties. However, even though both parties initially agreed, RCA execs Chet and Jerry attempted to cut back on that deal, where they tried to offer $5,000 instead. Now, y'all know just as well as I do, and Waylon's lawyer did, that Waylon would not take kindly to that. So here's how it all went down. In the autobiography, Waylon wrote, "It was down to a $25,000 sum, and they were not going to give it to me. He wanted it. We were sitting there, not a word spoken, and the silence got unbearable. After a while, I couldn't take it anymore. 'Chet,' I said, reaching over to a bowl on his desk, 'where'd you get these peanuts?' Neil glared at me. 'Shut up, Waylon.' You could hear a clock tick in the room. It got even quieter. Minutes passed. I rose up, never said a word, walked out. I went to the bathroom to take a leak. When I came back, Neil greeted me in the hall. 'You're a fucking genius,' he said." What? Walking out like that sewed it up. He was positively gleeful. "Where'd you go?" Waylon said, "I had to take a piss." "That's a $25,000 piss," said Neil. "They asked me where you went and I told them I didn't know. Waylon's mad, I'm sure. He's crazy. He's liable to do anything. They asked, 'Will he be back?' They wanted to know, and I shrugged. I guess he's gone, so we may as well call this to a close." And that's when they gave us the money. And not only did the money pan out for Waylon, but he was also credited with having his own creative control, which is what Waylon always fought for. Outlaw country is a sound of its own, but it also is about living out those songs, which he clearly did. Willie and Waylon were at the forefront of outlaw country, not only with their sound, but with their style as well. Next up on our list is a man who left this world way too soon and was an inspiration and a major part of country music. Keith Whitley. Whitley's career spanned from only 1984 to his untimely death in 1989. And in just that short time frame, Whitley had 19 #1 singles. Absolutely incredible. And man, did he have a voice on him. Whitley is now a member of the Country Music Hall of Fame, but it feels as though sometimes his name is lost when folks speak of country. It could just be me, but I believe he is one of the greatest artists of all time in this business. Tragically, Keith Whitley passed away on May 9th, 1989 at just 33 years old. Whitley's use of alcohol was not a secret throughout the country music community, and when he married Lori Morgan, she tried her best to give him the help that he needed. However, Whitley continued to battle alcohol and passed away in his home. An Associated Press article at the time revealed that authorities from the Goodlettsville Police Department found that Whitley was in his bed and was located by his brother-in-law, Lane Palmer. AP also notated that an autopsy was conducted and Whitley's passing was caused by an accidental overdose on alcohol. According to Charles Harlan, the medical examiner, Whitley's BAC was .477, nearly 5 times the legal limit. Cocaine and Valium were also found in Whitley's system from the autopsy. Those results as well were released a little later on. Whitley himself knew of his battle with alcohol, where he said in an interview back in '87 that it was a matter of life and death. If I hadn't stopped drinking, I don't think I'd be alive today. I did so many crazy things while drinking. Artists deal with much pressure in this business, and it is highly demanding to be at the top or just involved in it at all. Whitley was, and is still one of, the greatest to ever do it, and we lost this man way too soon. Keith will forever live in our hearts. Going ahead and moving into our last 2 stories. Next we have Willie Nelson. You gotta have a Willie story, right? How about the time he smoked a joint on the roof of the White House with President Jimmy Carter's son? Sounds too crazy to be true, but President Carter himself has even confirmed the story. Jimmy Carter confirmed the story in his documentary, Jimmy Carter Rock and Roll. Jimmy shared, "Willie Nelson says that his companion was one of the servants at the White House. Actually, it was one of my sons." Jimmy's son Chip, who was his son that tagged along with Willie, spoke about their moment together as well to the LA Times, where he shared, "We just kept going up till we got to the roof, where we leaned against the flagpole at the top of the place and lit one up. If you know Washington, the White House is the hub of the spokes, the way it was designed. Most of the avenues run into the White House. You could sit up and you could see all the traffic coming right at you. It's a nice place up there." September 30th, 1980 will forever be one of the most legendary days for Willie, country music in the USA. Last but not least, we share a story from another outlaw, Johnny Paycheck. Back on December 19th of 1985, Johnny Paycheck decided to go have some drinks at a bar after visiting his sick mother In Hillsboro, Ohio, the bar was known as the North High Lounge. However, a night of relaxation turned ugly. Johnny met a man by the name of Larry Wise and a man by the name of Lloyd Bowers at the bar, after buying the entire bar around. According to an Associated Press article at the time of Johnny's trial regarding this encounter, Paycheck's lawyer Ralph Buss argued that Bowers had bullied and intimidated Paycheck, attempting to force Paycheck to trade hats with his friend Larry Wise. Buss also argued that Wise had approached Johnny with a beer bottle raised up in the air, and that is when Johnny shot the man in self-defense. According to this same article, which reflected the court's notes, Wise testified that he did not see the gun and said, "My hat flew off. My ears were ringing real bad. I reached down to get my hat, and blood was running down my face. I knew I had been shot." Needless to say, after the confrontation, Paycheck left the bar, and it was alleged that Johnny threw his gun out the car window while riding back to his friend's home. Paycheck was ultimately found guilty and was sentenced up to 9.5 years in prison. His charge from the shooting was reduced to aggravated assault, and the court held on to the tampering with evidence charge regarding the disposal of his .22 caliber handgun. Appeals were attempted by Paycheck and his legal team, however, none ever panned out, but after serving less than 2 years, Ohio Governor Richard Celeste pardoned Johnny, and he was released in January of 1991. Johnny Paycheck had some run-ins with the law, and his music career was long, but after '91, he was really just best known for Take This Job and Shove It, a song originally written by David Allan Coe. Now, he of course had several other hits that folks did enjoy, like Colorado Kool-Aid, A11, and She's All I Got. But after returning to his music career upon release from prison, he did very few appearances and ultimately passed on February 19, 2003. The outlaw movement was huge for country, and Paycheck had a hand in it. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed Volume 2. As I stated before, country music has had some wild moments, and there has been plenty of turning of the tides, if you will. And if you have any more that you would like to share right here, please do it down below in the comments. That will be it for today's video. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications on as well, so you never miss out on any breaking updates surrounding your favorite country artist and all the news coming right out of Music City. Y'all stay country.